Morning, everyone, and welcome to what promises to be a really interesting session on dashboards. The Pensions Dashboard Programme has made some really significant progress over the course of this year and is set up to continue that progress in 2021. At the same time, we've seen continued development of online propositions amongst pension schemes, especially during the pandemic. Today's session will explore what lessons the industry as a whole, including the dashboard programme, can learn from those who are really at the leading edge of online proposition development. To discuss this, we've got an expert panel, including Raman Dhaliwal, Head of Products at the Pensions Dashboard Programme, which is part of the Money and Pension Service, Angie Kirkwood, who is Senior Manager Industry Development at Scottish Widows, and Clare Reilly, who is Head of Corporate Development at PensionBee. Now, before I hand over to our experts, we've got a couple of polling questions for you out there in the audience. So if we can move to the first slide, please. So the first poll asks, does your pension scheme currently offer digital access? Yes, no, don't know. And if you can fill out the form that's appeared on your screen. So we've got some really encouraging results here. Does your pension scheme currently offer digital access? 68% of respondents in the audience said yes. 32% said no, and unfortunately 0% said don't know, which is also very encouraging. So if we can move to the second poll. So the second polling question asks, are scheme members telling you that they would like a digital solution? Yes, no, not sure. Wow, so more than half, 52% of scheme members are telling their schemes that they would like a digital solution. 35% aren't telling their schemes at the moment that they'd like a digital solution, and 13% of people in our audience are not sure. So there's some really interesting results about online access and the desire for online access that we have in the market at the moment. Great, that's the extent of our polling questions. Now I'd like to move now to our first speaker, and I'd like to introduce Raman Dhaliwal, who is here from the Pensions Dashboard Programme. Raman, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning all, and thank you, George and PLSA, for inviting me. I will start by giving you a bit of a background. Could we go to the first slide, please? So the Pensions Dashboard Programme are part of the Money and Pension Service, which is an arm's length body of the DWP. Our vision, as stated by Currie, who is our principal, is to enable individuals to access their pensions information online, securely, and all in one place, thereby supporting better planning for retirement and growing financial well-being. So how are we going to do that? Can I have the next slide, please? So the program will do that by delivering the technology architecture necessary for the dashboard service to operate, making sure it is secure, it's efficient, and effective, and is based on technology that is flexible, scalable, and extensible. By creating governance arrangements that will protect individuals and support the operation of the dashboard service. These will include comprehensive and clear complaints procedures and a secure, efficient ecosystem that is trusted by users and are driving positive outcomes for the user. And finally, working with stakeholders and users to create a service for the dashboards that delivers a high level of satisfaction for the users of the ecosystem. And then looking at a steady state operating model and advise government as to what the long-term ownership of the central ecosystem could be potentially. Next slide, please. So the goals of the program, so just summarizes the goals of the program on this slide. So we know that people find pensions confusing. Most people do not connect with their pensions until much later in their working career. So the goals of the program are to connect people with their pensions and presenting information in a clear manner, in plain English, enabling people to understand what they are seeing and signposting them to impartial guidance and regulated advice. Now, this bit is quite important. The aim is to increase people's confidence, empowering them to make more informed decisions and choices about their pensions, ultimately contributing to people's financial well-being in retirement. Can I have the next slide, please? So this just gives us the context within which we are working. So currently, there are 52 million adults in the UK who may be working and paying into a pension pot or pots, or paying national insurance contributions towards a state pension. 2/3 of these have multiple pensions. As you know, there are no longer jobs for life, so people do end up working for several employers and potentially having several pension pots. So 4 in 10 adults over 50 find it difficult to keep track of their pension pots. And currently there are 43,000 pension providers and schemes in the UK. So over the last decade, the government has introduced a range of reforms in pensions. For example, the automatic enrolment, they reformed the state pension as well. There are greater pension freedoms, and there are fewer jobs for life, as I mentioned earlier. So that is sort of a big sort of challenging context within which we are operating and want to deliver these dashboards. Could I have the next slide, please? So we define what are the pensions dashboards? So the dashboards will provide clear and simple information about an individual's multiple pension pots or multiple savings, including their state pension, all in one place and digitally. They will also help people to reconnect with their pension pots. The next slide is a very short video just giving a brief overview from a user's perspective of what a dashboard is. So if I could ask for the next slide and also for the video to be played.
With more than 2/3 of people holding multiple pensions, it can be tricky to get a clear and complete picture of your pensions. We set up the Pensions Dashboards programme, or PDP, to tackle this challenge. Dashboards will be the place where you can view information about your pensions in a clear and simple format. But it takes a lot to make that happen. You begin your journey by navigating to a dashboard. Then you submit a request to find your pensions information, which is where things get a bit more involved. First, to keep your data safe, an identity service confirms that you are who you claim to be. You will be asked to give consent for your information to be used to perform the search on your pensions and to authorise providers and schemes to send your pensions information to the dashboard for you to view. You can withdraw your consent at any time. Now the Pension Finder service takes over. Importantly, it is not a database. More like a switchboard, it never holds any personal or pensions data. The Pension Finder service sends your request to all pension providers and schemes, which return a unique identifier to the dashboard for each matching pension. Then, you can request the pensions information, which the providers and schemes will send directly to the dashboard, where only you can access it. Pensions data will need to conform to a new standard. We are developing this standard with feedback from users as well as government and industry stakeholders to ensure it works for everyone involved. To keep your data safe, The Governance Register will ensure the Pensions Dashboards ecosystem meets the required security and performance standards. And dashboards will enable you to view your pensions information online, securely, and all in one place, so you can get a clear picture of your pensions.
Thank you. So to sum it all up, the Pensions Dashboard Programme will deliver the central digital architecture to enable the dashboards to function by connecting the user to their chosen dashboard to their pensions. So how will we do this? We will do this by building a pension finder service, which will act as a switchboard to send instructions to data providers, which will be the pension providers and the schemes, to search for a user's pensions. Building a consent and authorization server, which will act as a trust anchor to manage user authentication, consents, and permissions. Providing an identity service to enable users to prove that they are who they say they are, and a governance register, which sort of governs all participants of the ecosystem. Okay, so there is I'm going to just talk you through the progress that we have made so far. In the last 8 months, we have been sort of pretty busy, and it's been sort of pretty hectic. George will know because he has been working closely with some of us. We published an update report that sums up what the program have achieved since the last update report was published in April. So we published one in April, and the last one we published in October. So what have we done in these last 6 months since April? We have agreed the digital architecture for delivering the dashboard service, scoping out and sort of understanding how an identity service can be delivered. We've held several workshops facilitated by the Open Identity Exchange and attended by data providers and identity providers. We've also explored the interest that is out there amongst the industry in interest and capability in developing and delivering the digital architecture. So we've had pre-market engagement for that. And we are now preparing to start procurement by the end of December. We have also been working with a group of providers and stakeholders who were part of our data working group. I mean, it included members of industry and others. So this group was set up to understand the requirements of data standards. So the group has done extensive work over the last few months, and now we plan to publish their early thinking in December as well. We want to ensure that users continue to remain at the heart of everything that we do. And to that effect, we have set up a usability working group. The usability working group comprises organizations who are planning to create dashboards of their own, including the Money and Pension Service. It includes consumer representatives and regulators and also fintechs. Alongside that, we have continued to manage the program risks and dependencies and help development of legislation and rules that will make pensions dashboards a reality. So we're working very closely with the Department for Work and Pensions to do that. So as I mentioned, all these things that we are doing, you will understand that there are several dependencies on the organizations that we work with. So working closely with DWP and other stakeholders, so DWP for legislation, Treasury, because the Money and Pension Service still is like a semi-government organization, so we are subject to the controls that Treasury places on government organizations. So working closely with the regulators, both the Financial Conduct Authority and the Pensions Regulator, they are our key partners in making this happen. So we're working also closely with dashboard providers through the usability working group and with the pension providers and schemes. So that is quite a range of stakeholders. So these groups, the screen that you're looking at now, are some of these groups so represented within the steering group. The steering group has got representatives from industry and key stakeholders who help us with our strategic thinking and planning and how it all sort of comes together. For example, so we've got Clare speaking from PensionBee. The main founder, one of the key founders of PensionBee, Romy Savova, sits on the steering group. We've got the data working group, which represented several pension providers. It also represented some consumer groups as well. The usability working group, Angie is speaking just after me. So Angie sits on the usability working group. And then we have a digital design assurance group, which provides us with the assurance that we need on the technical architecture that we are proposing and building, and as we create the requirements. So this group is formed with technical experts from the industry and government. So we've got representatives, 3 representatives from industry and 3 from government. So with that, I conclude what I was going to say, and I will pass you back to George.
Thank you very much, Raman, for a really comprehensive update on what's been going on in the dashboard programme and plans for the future. We've started to get questions coming through on the Q&A, which is great. Please do submit your questions. You can do so via the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. I will ask those questions after our industry double header, which will tell us what's going on in terms of dashboards and online access already in the pensions industry. And first of all, to do that, I'd like to hand over to Angie Kirkwood. Angie, over to you.
Thanks, George, and good morning. I obviously work for Scottish Widows. We've had online access for our members for over 12 years. I guess the one thing to say is, yes, it's been slow and progress has been made in developing what customers, so online access on its own does absolutely nothing. It's what actually can you do to get customers to go online and actually find useful information to help them, to reinforce, to educate. I can't say that we have seen huge amounts of people suddenly going, we're going to go online to Scottish Widows. It's a pension. They come rarely. When they come, they forget the password. So it is not a very frictionless, easy, simple online journey, as they are used to in other areas that they use online. One of the things I think to say is, are customers pushing us to put our pensions into their banking apps? No, because they were never asked the question and they really can't see. It's a case of asking customers something where they really don't know what is the scope of this. So what I want to do is look at, we're part of Lloyd's Banking Group, and what we've been doing over the last year or two is working with Lloyd's Banking Group and saying more and more people are very, very comfortable banking online, using mobile digital apps. So what is it these customers want? So if we flip to the next slide, this effectively is what Lloyd's Banking Group, now nobody actually has a relationship with Lloyds Banking Group. What they have is a relationship with either Lloyds Bank, Bank of Scotland, or Halifax. So everything that is on their Lloyds app hangs off a banking relationship. And as we all know, the exponential use of online banking has just soared. So these are people who are comfortable using digital banking. And when the bank asks their customers, what is it that you would like? Customers say, we are very comfortable using online, using digital mobile to actually manage our finances. What we would really like is to see our information all in one place. So this is where we started developing. So when we look in Scottish Widows, 45% of our pension customers actually have a relationship with one of our banking brands. Now, do they know that we are related? Probably not. But we have the information. The bank's customers had said, we would like as much information as you can give us related to our finance. So if we look on the right-hand side, they can see their cash. That is their Lloyds, Bank of Scotland or Halifax savings account, their current account, their cash ISAs. And with the advent of open banking, they can see other bank accounts sitting in that. From there, we can put them on journeys that are savings journeys, give them tools like Save the Cash to build up rainy day funds, things that they can actually do to help themselves, and they are comfortable doing that. Below that, we've got in our stable a number of credit cards. Now, a lot of customers have Bank of Scotland accounts and Lloyds credit cards. So again, this is a mix and match of different relationships. People came into these brands from different places, but they love seeing the information in one place. Halifax, Halifax is one of the biggest mortgage lenders in the UK. We show people their mortgage. Again, and I always relate mortgages to pensions. It's not a thing you want to look at every day, but it's there. The information is in your face every time you log into your banking app. To finish it off, we have Scottish Widows. Currently, it's individual pensions and workplace pensions customers who actually see the value of their pension sitting on their app every time they go into online banking. And we have our sister company in the insurance division. We have your home insurance. So from there, you can manage your cover, start claims, you can do all kinds of things. So did people say we want our pensions on there? No, they said we want to see our finances in one place. So what does this mean to us? This means I was looking back over the last 20 years, and every single yearly objective list I have, one objective was always engage things like the research that comes out of the pension freedoms. When you look at people in cashing pensions and putting it into bank accounts and say to them, why? And they say, well, at least I know now it's mine. So we can never engage people fully in pensions until we really get the ownership issue sorted. By looking at this, by seeing it with their everyday finances, people know this belongs to them. And from that, they are more likely to engage. Now, I think if we go on to the next slide, what this is going to show you is our experience. So if you look at the top, so we've counted from January 17. These are customers who take out a plan with us and we say, go online, register and do something. So it's people that not only registered, but actually went on and done something. So we measure these. And if you watch that line grow, it grows steadily. And then in June 2018, what happens is we put it on to internet banking. So that's people sitting down at home at their laptops doing banking. And you start to see how many people from that register with Scottish Widows online. And then the big revelation comes when we actually put it in June 19, we actually put it on the banking app, and you watch what happens. So the red line is us and our progress to getting people not only registering, but actually doing something or looking at their pension. So if we watch that, if we could run this would be great. So we were happy with this progress. And this is us internet banking. And if you watch what happens to a red line, now we've started to shrink the scale because this is now apps. So if we take that, actually in the first 18 months that we measured there, we had 43,000. As soon as we surfaced their data in their banking app, in the same time period, we quadrupled the amount of people that actually went in. And when we look, there have been 106 million times where people have seen their pension. Now, this gets the ownership question really at the front, and it helps us engage. So what have people been doing when they've actually come in? Because that's always a pension person's issue, is what are they doing once we're in there? Number one, great news for us, they're changing their details. They're giving us their up-to-date addresses. Number two, they're checking out the contribution history, the split between them and their employer. They're increasing contributions, not in huge numbers, but they're doing it. They are looking at their funds, particularly recently, they're looking at the fund aims and its principles, and they're looking at the holdings within the funds, and they want to see exclusions. So you can see why people are going in, and the ease of access has just made that so much better. So I think, I hope this shows you that with ease of access, we can actually build engagement.
Great, thanks,
That's
Angie.
me. Back to you, George.
Thanks, Angie. It's brilliant to see how Scottish Widows and Lloyds are using dashboard platforms to empower their customers and give them that crucial sense of ownership over their pensions and their wider financial profile. I'd like to hand over to Clare from PensionBee now to give us the other side of our industry doubleheader.
Hi, George. Thanks very much for having me, and thanks very much for inviting us to talk about the PensionBee experience. So I'm just going to talk about two of our sort of dashboard-like product developments that have been really driven by customer feedback over the last few years. So the first is our app, and then the second are our open finance integrations. So for those of you who may not know, PensionBee was founded back in 2014. We now have around 60,000 invested customers and over $1 billion in assets under management. Our fastest growing customer group now is over 50s, who now make up around 25% of our customer base. And we were actually founded back in 2014 as a result of a pension transfer that went wrong. Our founder, Romy, who Raman has mentioned, was trying to move an old workplace pension to a new provider when she changed jobs. And she had such a sort of difficult experience doing that. It kind of led her to go to other people that she knew and said, what's your experience of pensions? And what she discovered was that everyone had this tricky pension problem. You know, this is kind of all of the research that Raman has highlighted, that people, you know, they don't know their balance, they're unable to see charges, performance, they're unable to get that information in a digital way in the way that they wanted and expect to. And so really a very early iteration of our business back in sort of 2015 was that we perceived the consumer need to be that people wanted to see a snapshot of all that information, of all of their pots in one place. And so we built that out, and then early user testing revealed that actually people wanted to take action. People actually wanted to They didn't want to just be able to see all these different pots. They wanted to be able to bring them into one. And that kind of gave birth to our product as it is today, which is a sort of pension provider and a consolidating product. But I think also it was really important, that learning taught us really to not only that you can't assume that you know what people want, but also to really listen to customer feedback. And I think that's no more evident than in our app. So another good example is our app. And in 2016-17, we didn't have an app. We thought that if we just had a fully optimized web app that was going to be operable across all types of mobile, that would be enough for our customers. But sort of repeating everything that Angie said around how we started to see this huge increase in the use of biometrics on phones in 2016-17, people became to want to run all of their finances on their phone, and they came to expect that. And so we started to get a huge increase in requests for a native app in app stores. We became the #1 most searched, I think, product in our sector in the app store. And it really kind of led us to sort of say, well, okay, well, we need to listen to our customers. Customers want to use a native app. They don't want to use the web app. And so we didn't have that skill set at the time. We had to bring in developers. I mean, technology had moved on a bit by then, by 2018 when we brought it in. And so it was a bit easier, but at the same time, that wasn't something that we originally ever planned to do, but it was something that our customers really spoke. And I think it took us around 1,500 or so iterations of that app before we pushed it live. And we worked with a group of customers to really understand what they wanted and needed. And so what I could like to do now is show you what that app looks like in 2020 as a result of sort of, a lot of work with our customers to develop exactly what they need. So if we could just run the video now, I'll just show a very quick video of what the product looks like in 2020. So sort of, as Angie said, people want to see contribution history and they want to see their balance. So the first thing you see when you log in it is your live pension balance. And you then immediately get your contribution history. So people do want to go in and they want to see the HMRC tax top-ups. They want to be able to click into them and understand what that tax top-up looks like. They want to understand when their personal or employer contributions went in, depending on the type of contributions they've get set up. The other thing that people really wanted they used to ask us all the time is, how much should I contribute? And so we built out this tool that allows people it pulls through your live data, which is your balance and your age. And then what it does, it predicts how much money you'll have in retirement and how long that will last you based on your current contribution rates, your age and your total balance. And so people can play around with the sliders and they can very quickly realize that they need to make more contributions in order to kind of close this gap between the retirement they want and the one they're going to get with their current contributions. You can also obviously performance. People are very interested now in how their plan is performing. They can also transfer across other pensions as they change jobs. So they can do that all in the app now as well, just in just a couple of clicks. They can also tell us who their current employer is and transfer that pension across when they leave. The other thing that people want to do is be able to make contributions really easily. This was a big request from our self-employed customers who make up about 20% of the customer base. They want to be able to make contributions in a couple of minutes when they get paid if they've got irregular income. So we set up the ability to contribute from business or personal accounts in just a couple of clicks on there. So you can do that, yes, as you can see, from a limited company, or you can do it if you're a sole trader. Then the other thing that people are wanting more and more, sometimes you said they want to know more about the plan they're in. They want to know the holdings in the plan. They want to know the exclusions. They want to know where the money is invested, how the money is invested. So we have that information on there as well. We're building out the holdings piece. So you can see there. And you can also switch plan there as well in the app. So this is kind of, this has been, sort of a labor of love with our customers to give them everything they want. And it wasn't something that we expected in the beginning. But what we have seen over COVID is a huge increase in the number of people using mobile. So we now have 70% of people using our mobile app. The breakdown by age is, I think, under 50s, 71% of people are using mobile only, and for the over 50s, 65% are using mobile only. And we have just seen a real decrease in web usage over time, especially with COVID. We've now seen, I think, as a result of COVID, and we compare Q3 this year to Q3 last year, we've seen a 96% increase in mobile usage. We're also seeing an increase in the number of times people are logging in to check their balance. So I think in Q3, this year. We recorded almost 700,000 interactions with the mobile app from our customer base. But you know, as we've already said, you know, people don't need to be logging in every day to their pension balance. It's a long-term saving product. You know, it's not helpful to be looking at that every day. But what is helpful, I think, and what we've always sort of been pushing for through our open finance integrations is the ability for people to see their pension alongside their other balances, like Lloyds Banking Group offer. And so, you know, we have 5 live open banking integrations. I can just ask for the slide to be brought up now. Through COVID, we've seen a 52% increase in API calls. So at the moment here, we can see 4 of these integrations on the left. Yolt. So this is where you're pulling through your live balance and your transaction history. And you can see that alongside all of your different other accounts with Yolt are agnostic, so you don't need to set up an account with them. You can just pull through all your balances. Money Hub, you get a picture of your net worth. You can pull through all of your different types of accounts. Starling Bank, more of a classic marketplace. You can sort of sign up to products and services. And then Emma is a sort of a newer type of sort of aggregator. And with Emma, you can bring across real estate. You can bring across assets such as rings, cars, watches, even Bitcoin, to give you this complete picture of your financial health, including pensions, I think, in a way that people haven't been able to do before. And so I think really just to close, we really think that kind of the customer demand and the increase that we've seen in customers using these open finance integrations and using our app over COVID has really started to sort of give us more, give us kind of an increased focus on developing out sort of open banking to payments technology to move to the next stage of this open finance revolution. So that will be replacing all of our direct debits with open banking payments technology, which means that customers don't have to go through a clearing process. They can sort of sweep across from other accounts in our open finance apps and also sort of see that money invested faster. And I suppose just to close, a few words on open finance, really. So obviously COVID has radically changed the way that we've seen customers and our customers interact with our products. And I think it's really changed their expectations of how they're able to interact with financial services providers. And I think it's really important for pensions that we are part of that data revolution, not only because pensions make up, you know, almost half of all private wealth in the UK, but because I think in many ways they're the most important financial product that someone has in their life. And if people are not given the data and the ability to interact with that pension early enough, that will have, terrible consequences for them later in life. And so I think as an industry, we have a huge collective responsibility to make sure that pensions are included in this open finance and open data revolution, and they're not left behind, because I think the consequences will be too great.
Great, thanks, Claire. You've actually just reminded me I need to consolidate a few of my pensions, so I might be in touch with PensionBee in the near future. We've got time for a few questions, and we've had some come through. The first question really is mainly for Raman, but I'm gonna sort of amend it a little bit and open it up. The question is, when will the data standards be published? But I'm going to open that up as well and say, from the perspective of Clare and Angie, how important is it that schemes and providers see the data standards for the dashboard sooner rather than later? So if we can start with Raman, if you've got a clear answer for us, that'd be great.
Clear answer. We are going to be publishing the work that the Data Working Group did over the summer in December. Is that the final version of the data standards? I don't think so. This is our first iteration. It would be wrong to publish a final version of data standards without engaging a bit more with the industry and with getting a user perspective of the findings to date of the work that the Data Working Group has done. There will be some clear decisions that are made on what sort of data would be useful. But at this point, I would say it is like the first iteration of the data standards that will be published.
Great, thanks, Raman. And Claire, Angie, any thoughts on the importance of seeing these standards sooner rather than later?
I can go. Yeah, I think
it just makes. Right, I'll go. I think it makes sense. The sooner we get to see them, the better. We are in a fortunate position where our data is digitized, so we know, but we need to know how will it flow? What is it it's going to be? So if you say, how long will that take you? How long is a piece of string? The quicker we get the data standards, the better we can plan and get it moving. So yeah, earlier the better.
I think we'd like to see the open finance develop in parallel to the dashboard. I think that the dashboard, they have the unenviable task of trying to connect with 40,000 schemes in this country, you know, some of which, you know, won't have, you know, full-time staff or any digital records. And I think that's like a mammoth task to be getting on with. And I think it's really important that where you have big providers, for example, like Scottish Widows, who are a leading light in this area, like they should be allowed to work on sort of in parallel some open finance standards, probably with the help of the FCA, so that these two pieces of work can obviously go along in parallel. Because if we do it sequentially, unfortunately, it's going to be, you know, sort of late 2020s before we get sort of a full range of data standards, I think, probably. So that would be what we'd like to see. And I think that the FCA are looking at sort of the open finance and potentially bringing pensions into that in parallel anyway.
Yeah, I think that's right, and we've got another question here actually specifically on dashboards that I'd like to ask that's just come through, which I'm sure you'll all have strong views on, with illustrations, and I think they're talking about estimated retirement income illustrations here on the simple annual statement, or due to be on the simple annual statement. Does it make sense to have similar illustrations on pensions dashboards? Raman, can we start with you and maybe go to Angie then, and then Claire?
So if I just clarify, is this the sort of information that Clare and Angie shared, I think mainly in Clare's presentation on the estimated retirement income? Is that correct? I'm just sort of trying to clarify the question, George.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see that in Angie and Claire's presentation, but I suppose the question is, would it make sense to have an estimated retirement income on pensions dashboards?
Okay, so would it make sense if I was a user? I would say yes. And there is user research which is indicating that for people to understand the impact of their pensions, or at the time when they retire is important. If we just tell them this is what they have now, it may not have that much, it may not make that much sense for them. So what does that mean for me in retirement? That's what I would want to understand. So if we look at it from the user perspective, then yes, it makes sense to have it there. But I think we also need to consider the challenges that pension providers and the schemes will face in providing that information. So how do we align that together is a big question for us to answer.
Great, and Angie and then Claire, just a quick couple of thoughts before we finish.
I think this is not a cop-out answer, but the dashboard is doing what really we all should be doing every time we start designing this. It is speaking to customers and saying, what do you understand from this? And I think whatever we do and however we present the information, whether it causes us a lot of pain or not, we need to really crack customer understanding of this and put it in a way that means something to them and is useful for them. So I think Raman, her group, is doing research with customers, and I think we should really listen to what they say rather than shoehorn what they say and what we can do.
Yeah.
I would just add to it all. I think the number one thing we need is consistency of the information across all of these places. So what you get on your annual statement needs to be the same thing you get on your when you log into the dashboard, and the same thing that you get when you log into Scottish Widows or PensionBee or any of these other apps, because pensions are confusing enough. And so we mustn't make them even more confusing. People are going to log into the app that tells them they're going to have the most money, right? So I think, so we just need consistency. And I think the simple annual statement the dashboard needs to be an online version of that, basically.
Great, and I think that's a perfect place to conclude. So I'd just like to thank the audience and all of our panelists And if we were in person, we'd do it in the usual way, but unfortunately not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.